I never really get tired of experimenting, especially with anything pertaining to firearms, and in particular, black powder or flintlock. So today, I'm going to do a little short experiment. I mean, it's hot out. I'm very hot out, so it's going to be a short experiment. But a while back, if you look at, let's say the video, Skychief loading a Kibler Fowler and what have you. The Skychief is a really popular load, and I got the results pretty much that I expected, and some of it I didn't. With the testing that I've done so far, it seems that the Skychief load, as opposed to a standard load, in other words, the same load, the exact same load, except in the Skychief you use that saturated cushion wad. It's saturated in olive oil. You put that on in front of everything. It's on top of everything. Well, it does seem, to me, it's done one of two things. The pattern is generally a better pattern than that same load without that oil-soaked cushion wad on top. But you might shoot a few shots and you get good results with it. And then all of a sudden it does what I can't, it's amazing to me that it doesn't do it every time. With that big heavy cushion wad in front of your shot column, it has got to screw up your shot pattern, at least from time to time. So to me, it either shoots a little better than the same load without the Skychief's oil-soaked wad in front of it, or it blows the pattern altogether. I mean, it'll have big, huge doughnuts in it, and sometimes it seems to steer the entire charge off to one side or the other. In other words, it's just not consistent. So, even though it may give a little bit better pattern about half the time, about the other half of the time it blows my patterns all to pieces. So to me, that's just not in the cards. I mean, I'm not going to use something that's that inconsistent. But in the loads that I have shot and been shooting in my Fowler, the birdshot loads, without any lubricant whatsoever, it does, of course, without any lube, that black powder fouling builds up on the inside of your barrel, and it tends to be hard caked on powder, residue, especially in dry weather like what we got right now. It's a really hard caked on residue. And when you go back and look at, go back and look through my videos on shooting muzzleloaders, particularly rifles, I'm a big believer in heavy lube. Heavy lube. Heavy lube. A lot of people say, you use more lube than anybody I've ever seen. It's because it works. And like I said, I have found a lot of old wives' tales associated with shooting black powder. And so instead of taking, like I did for many years, you'd read something and say, yeah, okay, all right, that's what people do, so that's got to be right. I did that for years, and then I finally said, wait a minute, I'm going to start testing some of this stuff myself. So I started testing various things, and I found out there's a lot of stuff that's generally accepted as being gospel that's not. It's just not true at all. So I am a firm believer in testing yourself, testing your gun yourself, and come up with your own conclusions. So In rifles, I use a lot of lube for a couple of reasons. One, it makes loading much easier. Much easier. Shoving that tight patched round ball down the barrel, it makes it much easier. And if I use an adequate amount of lube, I don't have any trouble loading. I can shoot shot after shot. But if I slack off on that lube a little bit, I get 2 or 3 shots, and all of a sudden you can't hardly pound that ball down the barrel. But if you don't have enough lube on that. So, the lube, enough lube, lubes the patch to make it go down better, and it lubricates that bore and softens up that fouling. The fouling is much softer. It's not hard and flaky, it's softer. So that's what I've been thinking about on my rifles. That's what happens. So I decided I'm going to do something a little different. I do like the results that I get from some of the patterns with the Skychief load. In other words, they're good. They'll be a little bit better pattern than without the Skychief, but then all of a sudden it just blows it all to pieces. So my theory is, that's what I think. I think that lubed, that heavily lubed fiber wad going down the barrel, I think it lubricates the barrel. It lets the shot ride down the barrel easier without scrubbing off parts of the pellets. And the pellets remain truer, rounder, so they fly truer, whereas if it's going down that barrel, scrubbing off on the pellets, scrubbing off on the sides of the barrel, they get out around and they fly off here and there and everywhere. I mean, that's true of any shotgun charges. The better patterns are held by a shot that maintains its roundness. Perfectly round shot flies truer than shot that's deformed. That is absolutely true. So, what I'm going to try, instead of shooting just dry loads as my standard loads, I'm going to take a little bit from what I did rifle shooting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my powder, and on top of the powder I'm going to use a thin card wad on top of that. Probably don't have to, but I'm going to anyway. I'm going to use that thin card wad. Then I've got a leather wad, punched out leather wad that I'm going to seat on top of that. Then I'm going to put a very generous amount of lube, not oil, not pure olive oil like you use in the Skychief load. Because if you put that pure olive oil down next to your powder, it's going to migrate into your powder. It's going to contaminate your powder, and that's not going to be a good thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that card wad down, then I'm going to put a leather wad, which is almost an 1/8 of an inch thick, down on top of that. Then I'm going to put that heavy lube, but this lube is beeswax and olive oil. In other words, it's more like a paste. It's got some body to it. It's not just oil, so it doesn't migrate through something like a patch or that card wad or that leather wad like it would if it was just pure oil. So I'm going to put an adequate amount of that lube. I mean an adequate. It's a 20 gauge bore, so it's going to take a fair amount of lube to lube that whole bore down through there. So I'm going to put a pretty good wad of that lube in that barrel. Then I'm going to put on top of that another leather patch, and I'm going to seat that down. Now what I'm going to have 2 leather discs down there with this lube trapped between. And when that charge goes off and that pressure hits it, my theory is it's going, of course, just pushing it down the bore anyway is going to lube your bore to some extent, but I think when that goes off, and that compression, that pressure hits that. I think it's going to tends to squish that lube out all around those leather discs and lubricate the bore as it goes down. Anyway, that's what I think is going to happen, so I'm going to go out here and actually try it and see what happens. And if it makes loading easier, in other words, I don't feel that hard packed, hard fouling. If my card and my leather wad just slides on down, more like it does when I have a heavily lubed patch shooting a rifle. I want to see how that does. I think it's going to work, but we're going to find out, because I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put up my pattern board, and we're going to actually see what it does. And I'm going to shoot light loads today, what I consider light loads, which is 80 grains. 80 grains of powder. That's about like a 2 3/4 or 3 dram equivalent shot shell. In other words, it's a moderate load. It's a fairly light load. And I'm going to use today 80 grains of 3F. 3F Go-X. Generally speaking, up to 80 grains, 3F will generally give you better velocity and better pressures and everything than 2F. But once you pass 80 grains, then 3F is sort of leveled off. It takes a whole lot more 3F to get just a little bit more performance, whereas 2F, once you hit that 80 grains, past 80 grains, 2F absolutely outperforms velocity-wise 3F. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. Now, a lot of people want to use just 3F, which I did for years and years and years, till I watched Duelist 1954. Mike Bellevue did extensive tests on that, and without a doubt, 2F outperforms 3F above 80 grains. But 80 grains being the cutoff, and 80 grains is about what I want to try to develop a squirrel and rabbit load for. So I will shoot both 3F and 2F, but I have already shot a few patterns with the 2F, so I'm going to shoot today 3F. And with that heavily lubed, that lube trapped between two leather discs, and we're going to see what happens. So first of all, I got to get in here and run a dry patch through my Fowler, make sure that there's no, that I'm not going to contaminate my charge to begin with. So let's get that thing, a dry patch run through it, then get out and set up my pattern board, do a little shooting. First of all, run the dry patch down this thing. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but I'm going to try. I get all the good out of a flint that I can possibly get. I probably carry it to extremes. Anyway, let me get this around here. If you can see, in my cock here, see that right there? That's a bit of a screw. Cut off a section of screw that I fill in where I've wore this flint down to where it's just entirely too short. It goes back too far. It doesn't strike my frizzing correctly, so I will go ahead, after the flint's worn down short, it's way too short, I put this spacer behind it, I guess you could say. Make it longer, and then I sharpen it back again. So I will get a few more shots out of it. And then pretty soon I'm going to have to retire this one this flint, but I may re-nap it down and use it for the smaller locks that I have. But anyway, get all the good out of the flint that you can. And I do that by putting a spacer behind it. First of all, we got our 80 grains 3F Go-X, then a thin paper card, and then next a leather card. Boy, if you turn this ramrod loose, it'll shoot across the carport here because it builds up so much pressure, which is trapping that air in there. Now, the next thing is that lube that I was talking about. Let me get this out of the way. I'm putting a goodly amount of lube in here. You gotta remember, that's a 20 gauge bore. If you're going to smear a bit of powder on that whole barrel, it would actually take a fair amount of lube just to do that. It's building up pressure, air pressure. So you got to kind of take it slow and let that air dissipate. All right. We got 80 grains of powder, a thin card wad, and two a leather wad to grease another leather wad. Now I'm going to use, first off, a 1 1/4 ounce load. And this is my new sock pouch that I just made. We'll get here. It'd be 1 1/4 ounces. An 1 1/4 shot. And then a card wad over top of that. Hold it all in place. Well, I did not cut a little groove or punch a little hole in that paper wad. And she's trying to blow this ramrod plumb across the farm. If you're not going to cut a little hole in there, punch a little hole in it, you got to run that down kind of slow. I might add that this is a real old flint. A Very old flint. It's been used like crazy. I'm just trying to see how many more shots I can get out of it. We'll see. And the 1/4 ounce shot, 20 yards. I'm going to see if I can tell any difference in loading this with that heavy greased. Well, I saw something falling there. Anyway, 80 grains. Let's see what this feels like. Oh boy, that felt entirely different. Not quite smooth actually. So now, put the leather bud. Gotta hold on to the ramrod because the air pressure will go shooting it. All the country here. Okay. Now we get that big glob of grease. Got another leather wand. $80 grains of 3F GoX, 1 ounce of shot, 20 yards. Well, actually, it's throwing a really good pattern. I'm super pleased. Very pleased with it. And that thin paper wad, card wad. Well, it definitely loads smooth, not rough, like when you put dry loads in there. That lube is flat helping. That lube is helping that wads to go down. Okay. Put a little groove in the edge of it, see if it let it go down easier. Like I said, I am putting down a lot of grease. Time. A 1 ounce load. It helps. That most definitely helps. And I've got getting several more shots out of that flint. That flint had done quit working. So I put the little wedge behind it. Screw. Working good now. One more time, 80 grains of 3F Go X, 1 ounce, number 6 shot, 20 yards. Gonna be one and a quarter ounces a shot. That was 1 1/4 ounces. 80 grains of Go X 3F and 1 1/4 ounces number 6. Really good pattern out there. One more time. 80 grains 3F switch or go back. That grease is softening that fouling enough where the leather and the paper card ride down the barrel smoothly. They're not digging into that hard, crusty fouling like you would have without the grease, with just a dry. One more, just 1 1/4 ounce. One more, just 1 1/4 ounce. All right, I'm going to try one more load with 1 ounce charge. It's really aggravating. The wind keeps trying to blow my target down. It's terribly windy. But I've been wanting to do this little test for a while, and I'm going to try to get her done. All right. 80 grains of 3F. Go ahead. Paper card with a little groove cut in it. Well, I really like the way it just slides down. It's definitely softening up all that fouling. And I think it's improved my shot groups dramatically. Leather wad. A big glob of grease. There'll be people saying, oh, you're using too much grease. Nope. Nope. It's working wonderful. It's throwing really good patterns. And it loads easy and smooth. Do you see that? You did or not, that rod just slid down all by itself. That is fantastic. See if I can get the target stay up long enough to take a shot at it. One ounce, Lou, 1 ounce. That's doing wonderful. And I do mean impressive. As far as the pattern goes, I'm impressed. I am very impressed. I will go in and, and analyze those patterns just like I did last time and compare them to the last time. But I'm telling you, I think I'm getting groups as good as I ever got with the Skychief. But I'm going to analyze them and find out. But I swear, I think that heavy wad of grease between those two leather pads, it's certainly making loading it so much easier. I mean, it's smooth loading. You don't, and the fouling is soft. It's not hard, crusty fouling at all. That grease, which is beeswax and olive oil, instead of it being just pure old liquid olive oil, which would soak into my powder. What it is, I made up this grease. And that's what I use in for a patch shooting a rifle, patch round ball rifle. And this shooting bare ball, or shooting shot, I'm not going to use anything. I haven't come up with anything yet for bare ball. So I really don't know how you do that. I mean, I don't have to give that a lot of thought, but on the shot, that wad of grease between those two leather pads, and with the paper card below it, that keeps the oil from migrating into your powder. It should do for a long time. There went the wind, blew my target down. Let me go get that up. Gracious, blew the whole thing down. There go wind, blew my whole target down. Anyway, I'm very pleased with the results that I'm getting from using that big wad of grease between those two leather pads. The shot groups, but patterns are beautiful. It loads easy. What else could you ask for? Now, although the Skychief load will shoot some really pretty patterns, and about half the time it'll blow it. Like this, it left this humongous donut hole in here and threw almost all the shot off to the side. It'll shoot a pretty pattern about half the time and then blow the pattern about half the time. So that's not good enough. It's got to be consistent. And to me, I have not found the Skychief load to be consistent at all. Another example of the Skychief load. It seems for some strange reason or other, either it'll blow a pattern or it tends to drift the whole pattern to one side, and you never know which way it's going to go. So it's got to be consistent, and to me, I have not found the Skychief load to be consistent at all. It will deliver some pretty patterns about half the time and then blow the whole shot group or the whole pattern about half the time. It's not good enough. Now, this is a typical pattern with 1 1/4 ounces. Number 6 shot, 80 grains, the 3F at 20 yards. In this center court, this center 15-inch ring, I got 136. 136, and then the outer ring, this whole outer ring, the whole thing, there's 92. So that's 228 pellets out of a possible 250. That's pretty doggone good. And this is using that grease load, where you use the heavy grease in it. Another pattern with 1 1/4 ounces, exact same load. And it also has 136 in the center circle. It has 100 in the outer ring instead of 92. That is incredible consistency. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. I've done a lot of patterning with shotguns over the years. I mean, shot thousands of these patterns. It's hard to get that kind of consistency with any shotgun. That is incredibly good shoot. I mean, it really is. That's 236 out of 250 in that 26-inch circle. Now here are those two groups side by side. The consistency is incredible. That's 1 1/4 ounces. Let's look at the 1 ounce now. Now with the 1 ounce load, the center court is tighter. Instead of having an average of 136, it's got 145. And in the outer ring, instead of having 90 or 100, it's got 51. The vast majority of your shot are in this 15-inch center core, and it's 196 out of 200 pellets. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let's look at another pattern. And another pattern with the 1 ounce load. There again, we got 141 in the center core, 51 in the outer ring, a total of 192 out of 200 in a 26-inch circle, 20 yards. That is fantastic out of a cylinder bore, a straight cylinder bore. That's really good. And here's side by side 1 ounce loads at 20 yards. Do you think I'd get a squirrel? I believe it would. Every time. Let me see if I can make any sense to you here now. This is the 1 1/4 ounce. This is an average. I've added all those up and got the average of all those targets of what they're done. And with 1 1/4 ounce in the center core, this 15-inch center core, I've got an average of 132 in the center core, and then this entire outer ring, I got an average of 95 with 1 1/4 ounce. And these are by quadrants. How much is in the quadrants? 44, 55, 56, 71. It has a tendency to shoot a little bit heavy, a little bit light on the upper left, a little bit heavy on the lower right. That's just what that load in that gun tends to do. That's typical for most any shotgun. But that's incredible performance. But then look down here at the 1 ounce load. The center core it's got less pellets. It's got 50 less pellets, but in the center core it's got an average of 140, and the 1 1/4 ounce has 132. And the average in the outer ring of the 1 1/4 is 95. The average in the outer ring of the 1 ounce is 52. This has an average of 1 1/4, 227 out of 250, and the 1 ounce is 192 out of 200. This is incredible performance. This 1 ounce load would be all you'd ever need for squirrels and stuff. Probably this one with the little bit heavier outer ring would be better for something like rabbit or the really good fast moving targets, flying birds or whatever, probably the 1 1/4. But I believe I'll use the 1 ounce for squirrels, because you surely keep squirrel in that 15-inch center circle. And it'd have a little bit higher velocity. So, but irregardless, the performance of these two is incredible, absolutely incredible. So what I find, and what I thoroughly believe, is that Skychief load, when it does good, it does good. But that big old, oil-soaked cushion wad in front of your shot charge, what it's doing, it has to be, the only thing that makes any sense is just lubricating that bore. And the shot are riding down the bore without being deformed, because they're so slick. They're not braiding against the side of that barrel. And so they're maintaining their roundness, and they're shooting a better pattern. But that big old wad being in front of the whole shot charge can, and does create doughnut holes in your pattern. Go back and look at my video on Skychief load in the Kibler Fowler. You'll see what I'm talking about. It will shoot really pretty pattern, and then it'll blow the pattern. So that kind of performance is not good enough. So my thought being that how can I lubricate that bore and get the advantages of the Skychief load without the disadvantages? So that's when I came up with the idea of using the leather card with a goodly amount of grease between it, with the leather on top of it. And then when that gun goes off, the pressure is squeegeeing that grease out along the barrel, lubricating the bore and softening the fouling. So when your next shot goes off, it's riding down a softer, more greased barrel rather than a hard steel barrel or a hard caked on fouling, which is going to just mess up the shot. And what I find is by doing that, my patterns are equivalent to the very best of the Skychief load without the blown patterns. So it's doing exactly what I was hoping it was doing. I'm getting the tightness, the performance, the consistency. I'm getting good performance consistently, whereas in the Skychief, it's spotty. You get good performance or terrible performance, one or the other. But in this situation, the load that I've developed there, with that grease, goodly amount of grease between these two leather patches or two leather wads, is giving me the performance consistently. I'm consistently getting performance equal to the very best of the Skychief loads without blowing the patterns and blowing them off center and everything else. So I'm going to keep using this because you know what? It's working and it's beating the Skychief.